Welcome into 11 Personnel, presented by our good friends at Monticello Bank. Monticello Bank, it's where people matter. It's where people mattered across the Commonwealth for more than 125 years. They're going to put the people first to make sure you got the right numbers on your side to get the best deal possible, whether you're looking at mortgage rates or maybe you want to open up a home equity line of credit. Whatever your banking needs are, they can take care of you at nbcbank.com or in one of their 20 convenient locations across 14 counties. We might be stopping in some of those locations here soon. I believe they've got one out in Nicholsville. There's also one in Lexington, and the mothership on North Hurstbourne in Louisville.
Go on.
North Hurstbourne in Louisville. Monticello Bank, proud presenting sponsors of 11 Now I can't talk it out. Jesus Christ. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. I'm Nick Roush. He's Adam Luckett, and joining us today, a special guest. We don't do guests a lot here, but it's a big week at On 3 because On 3 and Rivals have joined forces. Once rivals are no longer rivals. So that's why we're bringing on Justin Rowland to talk a little ball. Mr. Rowland, welcome to the family.
Man, I feel like I'm on Meet the Press or something. Like this is the iconic institution of streaming Kentucky football information, and to be a part of it is big. You know, I love going on Tom Leach every week. This is a moment too, and our worlds colliding is never going to be the same. You know, kind of knew things were moving towards consolidation in the big picture, but bam, these two brands together, we're going to knock it out. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's like any transitions, there's some friction initially. You know, the techs, they got to get all the bugs worked out. But essentially, if you're a member of Cats Illustrated, you get to see access to all things on KSR Plus. If you're a member of KSR Plus, you get to see everything that Justin is saying over on Cats Illustrated. You can't type on the boards. That's the only thing.
It's a big, beautiful deal that we've set up here. The big, beautiful deal where we get your stuff, you get our stuff, the integrity, the character of each beautiful community remains intact, and it's not a lot of win-wins out there, and this is a true win-win, I think.
So I'm fired up. I think I believe we've had you on this show before. I remember, this was a very, I was a little intimidated because back when Matt would take his vacations, he would get guest hosts. And so one time he got me, Justin, and Freddie to do a football show, which you're thinking okay, this will be fun. I think I had been on KSR once or twice before, but it was okay, you're going to sit in the big chair now, Mr. I don't know, I was maybe 23 years old, maybe if that. So I was a little intimidated. And then a guy by the name of Muhammad Ali died, and they were having his funeral procession as we were on the air. And I was like,
it happened. Yeah.
Just be on the biggest radio show in the state while the greatest is having his funeral in Louisville. And also, let's talk Kentucky football. So that was something else.
Yeah, that was a day. I think we've both come a long way. And this is gonna be awesome. You guys are awesome. I enjoy talking to you about UK football, hanging out during camp season especially, and then we're gonna be able to do this whenever we want, whatever the people want, we'll be able to provide.
I took some questions from KS Board for later. I want to get your thoughts on big picture stuff, but we also got to get to the nuts and bolts of this. And Luckett, I got to commend you on this because I was the one who texted you in early June, and I was like, oh, really? They're just going to host some Chaminade Madonna 4-star that's committed to Auburn for 18 months? Why are they wasting their time with this kid? And then, I don't know, it was Monday, and you were like, in KSR, on your insider notes, you're like, hey, keep an eye on Denarius Gray because there might be a flip here. And then, bam, 24 hours later, he's a Cat. So I tip my cap to you, sir.
Well, thank you, Nick. I know that's hard for you to say, so I really appreciate that there. But yeah, I think the big picture, I think, on this is just that the Damian Washington has really made a splash, a pretty big splash for them. Recruiting wise, I think he's given them a good kind of face on social media too, just kind of sharing excitement, what's going on, kind of teasing news that's going to happen. And a really nice win, I think, there for him in South Florida, on top of some other good ones as well. And with Gray and kind of with Dallas Dickerson, there was a time where you didn't think they were going to get him. Like you talked about, how serious is this? Is he going to be on campus? And Dickerson really didn't seem it was likely until it got towards the end there with him. And so overall, I think he's been kind of the story. If you're going to write the story, kind of this recruiting cycle, you would start with how they got off to this really slow start. You would then go to the Vince stuff. And then I think the third chapter would be the Damian Washington's impact on kind of their roster building right now.
In the optics of, like, I think what you mentioned, Luckett, is important too. Like, does every coach need to send out a tweet every time they get a commitment? No. But, I mean, we're all honest with each other. Vince was a face, and you lost a face, and now you've got this new guy who's getting players. And, I mean, I love the Mario Rivera gif. I mean, calling out the closer. Like, that's the kind of stuff that does help you forget some of that bad news, Justin. Like, it's a good shot in the arm in an off season where you didn't have a lot of positive vibes up until the last couple of weeks.
And, I think there's probably a lot of guys on staff that are eager to project this public face of confidence after Vince left. And maybe a few guys who bit their tongue for a while and wanted to explain how recruiting really happens at Kentucky and how it is a team effort. And I mean, I think whether Vince was there or not, they were bound to have some dominoes start falling. That was a good scoop, Adam. You were right. I was right on time. And yeah, that's the story of this class. I mean, when's the last time you felt as good about the floor of a Kentucky receiver class as you feel about the floor of this one? Like, there's been some talented receivers to dream on that they brought in, just raw ability. I think Javonte Richardson, some of the guys they brought in from Ohio that didn't amount to much, but like Dallas Dickerson, the guy they just got, Denarius Gray, like you'd be surprised if they don't turn into good SEC football players. And I haven't seen that floor among receivers in a while, so he gets a lot of credit for that.
Yeah,
and the churn too. I think you had every time you turned around, they had a new receivers coach on top of the offense coordinator. So I think, like, obviously, I think this whole, to me, the whole kind of class has been like they have a plan. Like, I think you can start to see it. Like, it was harder to see, I would say, in March or April, but now we're starting, I think, to kind of see what the plan is, and it's working to some extent for them right now. And they're getting guys on campus, and they're turning those into commitments for a good amount of them. Some positions more than others, but I do think, I think you see some of that continuity with the staff working together on offense. It's just something they really haven't had. You talk about just having a coordinator and a receivers coach that have worked together for multiple years. So they know what they're going after, and they know what they want. And then I think they're all pulling on the rope, I think. And I think that probably started really in this past portal cycle, and it's kind of, I think, leaked into this high school cycle.
And to your point on the receivers coaches, like that's a position, coach, that should be a guy who gets guys. And I think the turnover there, like, as much as we talk about offensive coordinator, I lose track. Like, I try to count them all out. I want to say there's been 7, but some of them get lost in the shuffle. There's been a lot. So having somebody come in and kind of set the tone right away. It is kind of funny, though, because I am getting flashbacks to guys like Richardson or Thaddeus Snodgrass, Justin, who were talking about opportunities and the role to play right away. That's given me a little bit of PTSD, but it does in some cases. This roster turnover feels like a hard reset from the early sort of Stoops era.
Okay. Yeah, and some of the quotes are funny. Yeah, in the NIL era, when NIL is such a big piece that nobody wants to talk about NFL, it's like Coach Stoops is no fluff, no BS. He told me I can come in and play from day one. How that's connected, I don't know exactly, but everything was in place. A lot of schools wanted to flip him, man, like Georgia, Florida State, Miami, the big three in your home state trying to flip you for 18 months, and Kentucky's receivers coach is the guy that gets it done. Yeah, it's impressive to see a guy in his first year come in and make such but you've heard other guys say it takes a year to play catch up. You're recruiting the next class and laying the foundation. Well, now you got other coaches that'll tell you recruit a guy for 2 years and it comes down to a 20-minute NIL conversation. So maybe that makes it easier in some ways for a new coach to come in and hit the ground running. Interesting so far.
And to your point, just like about the quality of player, I like a guy who, I mean, he's probably a slot, but also a guy who's making plays in the red zone, right? Like it isn't just like I'm bigger than you, let me catch it over you. Like they are tough, contested catches in traffic. Love that one-handed catch that you pulled for the film room, Luckett.
Well, one thing I would say is like all four of these guys, for high school prospects in general, have some kind of route running tools. I think Gray is the best one of the bunch, but I think based off what Kentucky fans just saw on the field of having a burner that wasn't the best at changing direction, stop and start. I think you see some of that with Dallas Dickerson a little more. Like I wouldn't say it's crazy, but you see some of that on top of having size. Like that's a guy who might get up to 200 pounds in a college program, 6'1", 6'2". So you see some of that, and then you've kind of got a guy in Prince Jean that's kind of your gadget type player, just getting the ball and let him go. Plays Wildcat quarterback for Valdosta High School in addition to receiver. So you've got, when you talk about like what Justin was saying, the floor, you see some of that, and it's easier, I think, to kind of project them. Like I look at Denarius Gray and I'm like, well, you know, he's probably got a safe floor as being a slot receiver somewhere on a good power conference team, or on a power conference team in an offense playing for multiple years. And so you see that, and you see Dickerson. Well, worst comes to worst, he can be, all right, dude, go and run a post, or we're running a reverse for you. See if something can happen. And Gene, I think that too. Gene, you can just be a guy, throw bubble screens too, and he might be able to make something happen. And so I think you do like the floor that they have there.
I think of Josh Ali as a good high floor receiver that played for Kentucky.
Like, well, yeah, I mean, if you get Josh Ali, I think they would sign up for. I would run to press the button.
Yeah, especially with this group. But we don't need to get into the deficiencies of this year's wide receiver room right now. There's two other players they added since we've last spoken that committed over the weekend, and I'm a big fan of Garrett Witherington, who the Birmingham defensive lineman who committed on Sunday, mostly because of this guy's size. I mean, when we look at a lot of these prospects, it feels like there's well, what can they become 2-3 years from now, especially a defensive lineman, right? Like you look at Duncombe, or even back in the past with like a Josh Pascal or whatever it is, you're seeing how much bigger can they get? I mean, this guy is already large at 290, so you know it's going to be closer to 320, 315, something like that once he gets in a college weight program. The explosiveness is the part that I'm like, I like this for a guy his size to be a three technique that is not only like has the ability to just be in there, but like, oh yeah, he can get upfield and he can get to the quarterback. So I'm a big fan of this edition, who had quite a few impressive schools that were in his recruitment too. So a couple nice wins for Anwar Stewart, in my opinion, on the defensive line in this cycle.
I agree, Nick. I think they've recruited the defensive line pretty well in the big picture. I mean, both Anwar and Brad White have done a good job of finding guys who fit the mold of what they're looking for in their scheme. And I think both with Duncombe, the defensive end, a little bit smaller, but also very versatile in that scheme, and Witherington, you're talking about two guys that fit the scheme very well. With Witherington, I mean, when he seems to keep a good pad level for somebody that size, and when he extends those arms, he's getting some serious power into the backfield. So he's a guy that's going to be able to push the pocket back. He changes direction in short spaces pretty well for a guy that big. Mm-hmm. He takes down some plays from behind with that length, and there's really no reason he can't develop into a very good SE. There's nothing you see on tape that's like that's really concerning, I think. So a couple of nice gets.
Yeah, I think with him and Duncombe, the play strength stands out. So you feel safe projecting them to at least be, as long as everything goes to plan, quality players for you. I think schematic fit, they kind of fit what Kentucky wants to do. Like, to me, Duncombe's like your typical 3-4 defensive end who could potentially slide in as an interior rusher, defensive tackle. Where Witherington is more of kind of like can be your big defensive tackle that's opposite your nose. Play some 3 technique when you're trying to get a pass rush. But for him, I think his kind of how he moved at that size was pretty impressive, along with the power. His chase skills, like in pursuit as a pursuit defender, were pretty impressive. So, like in both of them, I think you could see the kind of run defense potential with each of them. Pass rush, we'll see, I think, on both of them, but you could see the first and second down value they could bring, which is something I think Kentucky really covets, specifically in the front seven. It's being able to stop that run so they can create passing situations.
And those aren't the sexiest players either, but they're very vital. Just like, I'm going to grit and grind on first and second down. They don't stuff a lot of stats, in the box score, but that you need that, right? Somebody who's not going to get blown off the ball. And I think that also applies to the commit the Cats got on Friday. Offensive guard, not nearly the sexiest position. In fact, I think if you were ranking positions of, it's almost rare that we know about Luke Fortner and Logan Stenberg at Kentucky, because offensive guard has to be the least sexy position. But Kentucky got a guy who they were really bullish on in Tyreek Jemison, and it was a little shaky there for a little bit, Justin, but they were able to get the closing table and get it done. When the chips started falling on all these offensive linemen, you're wondering in this game of musical chairs, are they going to be the ones left standing up without a chair to sit in? But they were able to get Jemison in the fold.
Yeah, he had a great unofficial in the spring. He was very excited about Kentucky, but it did come down to that last official, and they made him feel like a priority. And the thing about him, it was emphasized to me, is 35-inch arms. For an interior offensive lineman, that kind of reach with his athleticism is very rare for an interior. That doesn't mean he's the best offensive guard in the country, but those are rare traits. And Kentucky, like the NFL, measures the actual arms and not just the wingspan, because, somebody's got a wide back. That can be a little bit deceiving. But 35-inch arms, he's got a great background, great family life, great support system, and he works really hard. He's a good kid. Very high floor, right in that kind of Dallas Dickerson. You'd be surprised if he's not a good player for you, and he could be a really good player for you. So, yeah, he's one of the better offensive guards they landed in a long time.
Yeah, and it also fits the mold of kind of what's worked for Kentucky. Mm-hmm. Get some off at high school tackles and turn them into guards.
Yeah.
They've had a lot of success with that in the past. So that's interesting. To me, I think, physical downhill kind of body mover, the point of attack. I think if you put Jemison in kind of they tried to do the old let's wide zone and try to reach people to death. I don't know how good he would be at that, but just allowing him to play downhill, double teams, which is kind of what they've done here the last 5 or 6 years. I think he can be successful in kind of how they want to play. He kind of got a similar, like Jalen Farmer, similar kind of type body type there, right. Inside. And so he's a guy, again, I think was a really good recruiting win. I think you look at some of the teams in on him. We talked about this, Nick, but like Brent Key is a guy I really like.
Yeah.
Specifically when it's dealing with offensive linemen there at Georgia Tech. Ole Miss was in on him. NC State and Kentucky have kind of butted heads offensive line recruiting here lately. So they were in on – there was some good competition, I think, in for Jemison. And you can see it with him, the potential, and just physically, I think he's got some stuff to him, and he'll be ready to play, I think, pretty fast when you're just talking about offensive line development, just because you look at his raw size measurables and what looks like to be some real power on film. Yeah,
and it's funny you mentioned Farmer too, because that was who he mentioned to you. I think when you all were chatting around his commitment time, was talking about Jalen Farmer, and I always appreciate offensive linemen that can just get to the second level, because that takes discipline. When you're that big a size and you have that big of athleticism, just to keep the guy in front of you, but then to make contact and then drive him back, that always shows me something. And another part too, like I like getting wins in the Atlanta metro area. That's usually like, so it's not 100% hit rate, but like they play good football down there, which I think is the weirdest part about all of this, is that we're having this discussion where, no, this is not going to be Kentucky's highest ranked recruiting class. They're not going to be top 10 in the SEC, top 25 overall, but it's a solid group, and they've done it all without one damn kid from Kentucky or Ohio. Like not one. And we'll talk about the kid from Ohio that they might be getting that could be a complete game changer. But that is just remarkable to me. And they've done it by, in large part, you've got, I think, 3 from Georgia, 3 from Texas, a couple from Florida. Like, they're going to the big states that have the talent. And, like, maybe you can't do that every single year. But it does feel like a little bit of a zig to the zag. And I don't know. God, how purposeful do we think this was? Was this like an intentional, maybe shot at the old guy in the room who wanted to recruit Kentucky and Ohio, or was this just kind of how things worked out?
Yeah. I mean, Vince would have taken 20 from Ohio and Kentucky to have, but I think the extremes were always bad. Well, those years when they got away from taking any kids from Kentucky, and it was like 2 years without a verbal from an in-state kid. Taking 13 kids from Ohio didn't work out. Taking 15 kids from South Florida over a 2-year period didn't work out. They're at their best. Anybody's at their best when every member of the staff is really honed in on the position kid they're recruiting and they're drawing. There's no dissent. There's no, I want to get my guy. We're going to get, this is who we agree is the board, and this is the priority list. And I think that's what they're doing now. So you would like to see them carry a little bit more weight in Ohio and in Kentucky. I think with Vince heading out, the circumstances with the local recruiting were definitely odd. I know there were a couple of kids that they thought they were in better shape with, but after he leaves, find out the communication hadn't been what I guess the rest of the staff might have hoped. And like with Jack Janda, the tight end out of Michigan, I think. But yeah, I'm with you. They're kind of drawing from all over the map, and that's an ideal case. You're not over focused on where you're getting them from. More important is who you're getting. So that's working out.
Well, and that goes back to the classes where like Sumrall would get 3 or 4, and then Klink would get 3 or 4, and you would kind of, it's like, oh, like we're not all relying on 2 guys to do everything for us.
And yeah,
my overreaction would just be, our opinion would just be, just try not to overreact to, like, stuff happens, years get weird. It's just hard not to, like, the Ohio class, if you kind of look at it, they had a lot of tackles, but like one went to Miami, one went to Clemson, one went to Ohio State. So those are guys they were in on early, and it just kind of didn't happen. And then they play the Glenville game. You're not going to get anyone from Glenville. We've seen it 1,000 times. So it was just, I think it was just kind of a weird cycle in Ohio. And then the Kentucky, I think this was probably, I think you maybe classified as maybe a little bit of a down year talent-wise as compared to maybe some recent years and some years kind of upcoming. Mm-hmm. But I think, like, you still, like, it's really important, I think, to recruit Kentucky and Ohio. I think you got to go back to what was a big part of hiring Mark Stoops was the ability to get into Ohio because it's so close, because it produces so many players year over year. So it's never something you want to sleep on. So I'll be interested to see just how they attack it moving forward without Vince, because it still needs to be a coveted area for them. And
would anybody be mad if Matt Ponitowski was the only Ohio kid they got to? Like, oh, let's just get this top 100 kid who's top 10 quarterback in the class.
Kid is really good. I mean, he's got. I don't want to like sell Drew Barker short or sell any of the other guys that they've had that were highly ranked in the past short, but they were kind of hangers on at the Elite 11 and the national quarterback event. They were there, but they weren't maybe like the focal point. And I feel like it wouldn't shock anybody competing against the best quarterbacks in the country when this guy proves he's got as good an arm as any of them. Like he is very impressive. It's kind of tough because it's the results on the field this year and next year, and he's still a ways off from making a real impact. But he would be probably the best that they've gotten in a long time if they're able to make it happen.
Yeah, I think just high school tape alone, his junior film was just at a different level than they've been in the, typically. I mean, I think he's underranked in the services. I think he's going to get a big bump. He's not the biggest, but he knows how to play quarterback, and he knows how to deliver the ball. Like, he's got the shortstop arm, so you see that where he can just wing it, but he also throws with pace, timing, accuracy. I mean, his accuracy is off the charts, and everything he showed up to, he's just been awesome at. Like, just showed up and be the starting quarterback at Moeller. All right, lead him to the state championship game as junior win Mr. Football. Go out to Elite 11 without really any QB private training like all these other guys. So he's one of the best ones out there. Like, it seems like he might just be scratching the surface. And that should get you excited.
It's fun.
Potentially what he can become. And
like on top of it all, when you're the Moeller quarterback and you're playing in that league, and you know Trinity's going up there to play him at Mount St. Joseph's for a game, like this is going to be a fun. If he hops on the boat, which I'm thinking it's going to happen right after I yell cannonball on July 4th into the above ground pool. Like it's going to happen at just the most inopportune moment. I can feel it in my bones. Just waiting on bated breath. But if they get him on board, this is going to be a very fun player to follow. That will, like, I feel like we've only scratched the surface with the hype, and you know that can depending on what happens in the season, that can grow even more. So he's a player that, like, it feels like that a lot of folks only got to know him too within the last month, and the more you see of him, the more you're like, oh, okay, all right, well let's see some more. Let's get some more of that. I want some more of that action.
He's got some quality. Like, first of all, I am not infallible in predicting how quarterbacks are going to turn out, and if anybody were, they would make a lot of money doing it. Yeah. But he's got some qualities that you look for in who's going to make it at the next level. Like when he's got pressure bearing down on him, and he just instinctively seems to know where to go with the ball, and he just puts the right touch on it without this time elapsing. It just kind of clicks for him in the moment. Where's the pressure? Where's my number 2 option? How do I get it there? How do I fit it away from defenders? These are qualities that not a lot of thought is taking place. There's a lot of muscle memory, and that's a quality. That's kind of like Phillip Rivers. You know, the first time I watched Phillip Rivers play, that always stuck with me against Arkansas State, his first game in college. He just always knew where the pressure was coming from. And his footwork doesn't break down when he's under duress. His footwork is impressive when he's under duress. He changes arm angles correctly, and the thing that jumps out is it just kind of happens. There's not a lot of thought. It's just in the moment, very quick. And I like to see that.
Well, I feel like you kind of dated yourself with that Phillip Rivers reference.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah. I had season tickets back then. I was never an NC State fan. That was the closest team that I had at the time. So that was pretty cool to watch.
Well, who was that was the Oregon coach, the big fat guy. Or not Oregon, Maryland. Who was the Maryland big fat coach?
Friesian.
Yeah, that guy was enormous.
Wishbone at Georgia Tech may have been the pinnacle of college football offense.
We need to give a shout out to our friends at Rowback, where they've got the best gear in the game. RHOBACK.com. We're going to be down at SEC Media Days in a couple of weeks. Football season's here is going to be before you know it. You got to look good. You got to feel good. You got to play good with Rowback on. And when you get your gear at Rowback, put in promo code KSR, and you're going to get 20% off your first purchase. Look, I got 18 holes in last Saturday. I had my Rowback gear on, and my buddies were like, hey, it's pretty nice there. You got a little Rowback on? It's like, yeah, I know I'm not that good at golf, but I know I'm going to look good when I'm playing golf this summer with Rowback. Whether you're 15% off your first order. Not as good with that promo code KSR, where you're going to get 20% off. Great shorts, great polos, great workout gear. They got it all at Rowback. Promo code KSR for 20% off your first purchase. Justin, I've got a question for you.
All right.
So you were in the New Mexico mountains when the Vince Marrow news broke. I want to hear how all of this unfolded.
Somebody that used to work at Kentucky sent me a text, just LOL, never thought it would happen. And because I had heard that some of this might be going down, but we couldn't really mention anything because at that point, what would everybody say? You're just crying wolf. You're just crying wolf. So it wasn't that shocking that it did happen, but it was like you would hear things behind the scenes, like things between Mark and Vince have broken down, the relationships are frayed, and then that's like you never really knew how much of it to believe. But then when it happens, like, wow, okay, there must have been some serious stuff happen behind the scenes for Vince to get to the point where he would ever leave Mark. And you knew it was going to have to be really bad for Vince to ever leave Mark, just the way that things were between them. And for him to go to Louisville, knowing how important his stature with Big Blue Nation is, for him to go to Louisville, it was his best opportunity, but it must have been pretty bad behind the scenes for him to make that move.
I just would have loved to have. At least you had service, because I could see there being like some outages when you're out on this long hiking trip, and all of a sudden there's 56 text messages on your phone all at once. Just
yeah. I mean, the timing of it made it even better, because it's just like, really, we're doing this now. Like, you're doing this, and right when the stuff starts really happening from a recruiting thing. For Vince is like, what should be like his biggest month of the year.
Yeah.
You're really like, this is when you're saying sayonara. It's like it's almost like breaking up with your girlfriend the week before Christmas. It's like, really? We're doing this now?
I'm not telling anybody how to do it, but why is there not a montage going viral on BBM Twitter with Vince saying everything that he said about Louisville in the past and saying everything he said about the SEC? And I mean, it would probably be smart to tag the guys he's recruiting. And I'm throwing it out there. It seems like low-hanging fruit.
They're too busy making motivated Mark Stoops memes.
There you go. Yeah, let the AI do it for him.
But here we are a month later, and the Vince Marrow move is still generating content. I don't think that's going to be changing anytime soon. I'd love to have been a fly on the wall at Trayvon Pascal's wedding this weekend when all those former UK players were there, and Vince was there, and the Crafts and all these other dignitaries. I'm sure there was a little bit of ball busting here and there. But, hey, we don't need to spend too much more time on Vince. I want to get to big picture stuff before we get to questions, because we got some really good ones from the folks over at KS Board. All right, so let's – I don't want to put cart before the horse, but if you're looking ahead, it feels like Ponatoski's probably the only other guy left in July that they're going to get. Adam Mabungaba, good luck saying his name.
You're just all over the pronunciations.
I'm way off on it. But there's a couple picks for him to go elsewhere. It's already gone in 1 year.
We call him ABA.
Yeah.
Adam. Yeah.
ABA. He looks like he's out. He's deciding on Monday. Koshi Barnes. He got picks rolling in for South Carolina right before he announced he's going to make his decision at the end of July. Kentucky got 2 cornerbacks. You could see why they wouldn't get 3, right? Like, that sort of makes sense. Jack Fuchs is off the board at offensive line. So unless I'm mistaken, it feels like, you all can correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like there's not going to be an immediate something's going to happen in July unexpected. It feels like the dominoes might settle if and when Ponatoski gets on board. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it seems that way. There's a couple guys out there that possibility, but I think the smart money would be on Ponatoski commits and they enter the season.
Yeah. We get into the fall
board resets.
Yeah. Try to maybe flip some guys, look around elsewhere. So when we get into that season, what's the most pressing need, right? Like where does their focus need to be? What holes need to be filled? I'll start with you, Justin.
Just look at the class, assuming they get Ponatoski. I mean, what are you lacking? I mean, you don't really have any edge help. I guess you don't really have a guy that's like a proven beach upfield edge rusher in this class. That's probably not the biggest priority. I mean, but they have recruited some edge defenders, Ashari Charles and a few others, so you knew that they weren't going to punt on that totally. But I think everything else is pretty well spread out. They'll probably add another high school offensive lineman. I know Jacob Holacek with you guys, and I spoke with this J.J. Wilson, a JUCO offensive lineman, because they don't have a lot of sophomore and junior offensive linemen. I think a JUCO would be appealing to kind of balance out the depth chart just in terms of years and experience there. And I guess another guy would be Tyrell Simpson. I know you've written about him, Adam, and we've written about him. He was committed to offensive lineman committed to Rutgers. And I heard that some of the NIL promises didn't materialize with Rutgers, and maybe he's going to flip to Kentucky. He went ahead and flipped to Virginia Tech, but he would be somebody that we watch for as well.
That would be nice, because I think tackle is the one that you and I are probably most concerned about, Mr. Luckett.
Yeah, I would say tackle and edge are the two that stand out to me the most, because you only got 6 guys in the edge room right now. You could lose. You're going to lose King.
Oh no, he froze up.
He froze.
Up on. Oh man, that's unfortunate. But he is correct. Cam Olds will be out after a year, and then I believe the other edge. I guess Lorenzo Cowan. You kind of space it out a little bit there, but the edge room has been a bit of. It hasn't been what we've wanted. Like I think Kentucky fans, like you had Josh Allen, and nobody expects you to get another Josh Allen. But there is this sort of, okay, you need some sort of production from that position. Fearbury looked the part. He had the prolific ranking, and then that just didn't materialize. Like, it just didn't click for him. And then now it's like, okay, well, what could Jacob Smith do for you? Is he more of a Sam? Is he more of an edge guy? And I think the other part, like mentioning offensive tackle and edge, you and I both know those aren't cheap positions in the portal. So rolling the dice on a high school kid, and it seems like the better option of the two than trying to pay for a proven guy out of the portal.
Yeah, that's the ideal, and I think that's the kind of guy Brad White is. He'd rather be able to work with somebody hands-on for a few years anyways and develop. But they did bring in a lot of portal guys that are edge guys. It's funny with Josh, when you have the National Defensive College Football Player of the Year, inevitably in his wake, is Boogie Watson going to make the Josh Allen jump? Is this guy, as Tyrese Fearbury? Turns out it's just hard to be the best defensive player in college football. And the good news is they've proven they can have a quality defensive unit, even when they're not getting a ton of production from that spot. But yeah, that's an area where they would want to add somebody, I would imagine, this year.
Let's see if they can get it done. All in all, just trying to assess, like, big picture. I guess maybe not your biggest storyline, but what do you think? Like, how do you evaluate this class as a whole? Did they address needs? Did they address position of needs going into this 2026 room?
I think they have. I mean, assuming they get Ponatoski, that would be the best quarterback situation they've had. Depth chart top to bottom in a really long time. Running back is still a question. We'll see if they add another guy. But, yeah, I mean, you feel like receiver is strong. I like the 2 offensive linemen they have. I like the defensive linemen they have. I like the defensive backs they have. In spite of the class ranking lagging, I think they've got quality players at every position. I don't look at any of these guys and like, whoa, that was a definite reach. And there have been some definite reaches in recent years, especially with some in-state guys. So they were patient. They didn't panic, and it paid off in June. And that makes it a lot easier to fill it out the rest of the way.
Some of those reaches, I think, were like those tiny, undersized receivers in the past, where you're like, I know you want fast guys, but you need a little bit more than that. Yeah.
A couple in-state offensive linemen were probably borderline guys. The point is, I just don't feel like any of the guys are like, are you sure about that? Maybe a couple of them didn't have the long offer list, but they brought like something like Max Mooring, brings a lot of really good qualities to the table. I think Alston, even as a running back, is he the marquee guy that you want to bring in to be your every down back? I don't know, but there are still some qualities there that justify bringing him in. So, and that's top to bottom. It's pretty solid class.
Yeah, Nick, I would say like there's a couple positions on the team that I think they've probably not had great recruiting runs here recently that I think are kind of in. Like I think linebacker, I think you would like to have more of a no doubt guy there. I look at edge, like where they are, what they just had to do in the portal, where are they going to be after this year. So you would like to maybe hit a splash, and I think they went for that when you look at going after Jackson Samuels Ford, going after Ashari Charles, and really kind of pushing hard for both of those guys. I think tailback's obviously another big one. I think you look at any position where they had to go and get multiple guys out of the portal. There's kind of a reason for that. That means they've kind of missed somewhere along the way is recruiting. So those are the positions you really need to like try to backfill now and have some good recruiting wins. So that would be a little bit my concern. I think linebacker, edge, and tackle. I mean, we've talked about tackle for years now, that they really have to fix it. And I think you come away from this summer thinking well, they got someone, but how good is this prospect that they got? Where it's not one of their, I would say, better prospects in the class coming in. But I do think this class is going to revolve around Ponatoski. And if they get him and he plays college football, no one's going to give a damn about the other positions. And he could be a game changer for them. And so keep getting him, signing him, and telling the Major League Baseball to stay the hell away is really going to be, I kind of think, what this class is going to end up being judged on to me.
We'll see about that. There's some more we got to get to, and I'm going to open up KS Board to look at some of these questions here. But before I do, I need to tell you about our friend Andy Ludicky at myperfectfranchise.net. He's a franchise consultant that you can chat with. Say, you know what, I'm getting a little bored with my job. I want to check out something new. Or, you know what, I could mess with a side hustle here. Andy, he's going to talk with you about what your financial needs are, what your preferences are, what your work life is, your schedule, to help set you up with the best franchising opportunities possible. It's no cost to you. He's helped out plenty of people across the On3 network. We'll soon be helping out people across the Rivals network too, finding franchising opportunities. You can do that by visiting myperfectfranchise.net. You can email him at andy@myperfectfranchise.net or give him a call at 404-973-9901. That's Andy Ludicky at myperfectfranchise.net. And as we get to some of these questions we got on KS Board, it kind of piggybacks off of what we were talking about. And Monty Katz brings up a good point. He's a little bit more blunt. I wouldn't phrase it the same way, but he asks, what does Boulware bring to the table? He's a 0 in recruiting and can't convince Wilcox to tie his shoes. There is, I think the running back recruiting is a legitimate question here because it's so vital and so important. And the portal stuff, there's been, what's the right word for it? It was a home run with Ray Davis. They didn't get the kid that went to Miami, it was Damian Martinez, but they had Chip train him, and then Chip gets hurt, he doesn't play. It was an abject failure a year ago. So, how long can you go on gambling on these portal guys? And I know it's still TBD, but, long story short, if they have Marquise Davis in the last class, we're not sweating any of this out. But instead, we are at this point where it's is it going to be Jesus in cleats that has to be our Messiah? What's going on here? So I think that's fair and legitimate. I think you can also say he has been a good asset in special teams. I love the bickering over Aussie punters. But if you look at the net punting, the return game, the kickoff, that stuff has been good. They damn near lost the game at Missouri because they couldn't get a snap down. What was the field goal? That was the long snapper. Alex Rayner was the most efficient kicker in school history. He got him from the portal. So the special teams has been a plus, but there are it's fair to worry about the running back recruiting because that guy Evan Hampton right there. They should have been on his ass like white on rice. That kid's a stud. Why is he at Louisville, right? That wasn't some sort. No, they should have gotten him. He was committed to baseball when he went and ran a 4.3 at your camp, dude. Get him. He was a Kentucky baseball commit. Make him a Kentucky football commit. That should be a no questions asked. He's going to be. I'm afraid of how good he's going to be at Louisville. He's got guys in front of him that'll give him time too, in an ideal situation. But that's going to be something that 2 years from now, I think I'm going to be really ticked off about. So I want to get in front of it now because I think that it is, when you look at what got Kentucky to where they were at their best, it was because they were getting dudes who could just run the damn ball they some of the 3 best rushers ever. Some of the 3 best rushing seasons in school history happened in back-to-back-to-back years. If you want to do that, if you're building a team to do that, you're probably best off getting a kid from the high school ranks, and no offense to Deuce Alston, but that's a reach to project that right away. So I spoke my piece.
I think you said it quite well, and that's not a knock on Boulware. You don't become a running backs coach where he was unless you have proven you can do it. I would say recruiting running backs where he was in the past, a little bit different than recruiting them at Kentucky when everybody knows the big blue wall has struggled. And those guys weren't producing a ton in the NFL. But when you compare what the program was when they were really clicking, like you said, to now, it stands out. Yeah, the lack of recruiting success stands out, coming off a year when they lost both of their high school running back commitments, Isaiah West and Marquise. So, yeah, you would want to see maybe some more juice there. I think McGowan's interesting. But the chip issue last year, and then with Dowdle coming in this year, and I think that frankly, maybe that's been downplayed a little bit since he got in as well. Maybe stiff is a harsh word, but he's going to have to prove that he's not. Yeah, you'd like to see some of that juice from the receiver room recruiting transfer to the running back room as well.
Yeah, I think McGowan and another good year special teams where maybe Laros takes a step forward as the punter. If he hits on Coway or another that transfer kicker, they added names escaping me at the moment. If special teams are good and you hit on McGowan, who he went and got out of the portal, like I think you just look at him in a different light.
That's true. That's 100% true. Because last year was things went sideways in unexpected fashion.
Yeah, and Chip Trainum was one of those kind of, like, when you talk about it, that was kind of the Vince guy. That was kind of Vince stepping in to get them a guy.
Right.
And I think that's what some people in that building tried to eliminate. Things of that nature. Yeah. And so now, like in this offseason, now I think the Dowdle recruitment was a little weird, but Boyer got to go out and pick McGowan. Like they went out and got him to come here. And so he's going to have his guy there. And so let's see what he can do with this guy.
And it hasn't been a total bust or anything. Like I agree, the special teams has improved. And Ray Davis, I mean, that was far exceeded anything I expected from him. And it's also they're not running behind the lines that they had a few years ago, and that
didn't have a bunch
how would that have made Benny Snell and Chris Rodriguez look in hindsight if they're running behind the 2022, 23, 24 offense?
Yeah. There's also some Jamarian Wilcox fatigue. Like, why can't you get him to be consistent? Right. Like, I think there's some of that too. Why I think fans see it as, well, that guy is good at running the football. Why don't we see him more? And then I think there's some maturity and stuff and just some stuff he needs to get together so they can depend on him, I think, day to day. And that we've kind of reported on and talked about. And so I think that all of that kind of, is added together. And I think that's where you see some frustration, I think, in some sections of the fan base with Boyer and kind of what's going on with the running back position. But you can't talk really running back without talking about how the offensive line is just not what it used to be.
We're going to get to a question from one of my favorite KS board users. And Justin, that was the thing, is we were not – I know Luckett, he did some work with you at Cats Illustrated previously. He was a message board guy, but I had never been an active message boarder. So I didn't realize that I would develop rat-a-tats with some of these guys. Because me and SEC First, we kind of go back and forth, but it's fun. I like it. We mix it up, and it's usually good, clean fun. And I love this question he has because it's why the sudden reversal in landing higher-ranked offensive skill guys and lower-ranked defensive front seven guys. It's usually the other way around for Stoops. I try not to get I'm curious how the rankings will reset after this, once this next round comes around, after the sort of camp and eval period. So things will be a little bit different just a few weeks from now, I'm sure. But that is a great point, and it's also kind of odd. Maybe it's it's something as simple as just they have an offensive coordinator recruiting for more than a few months.
Does that help? I don't know.
Continuity.
Yeah.
I would think that has a role in it, and I would also think that hey, you actually have a wide receiver coach who's getting guys. I think Dyke Hill had the one Texas kid. There was the other guy in there whose name is escaping me. That was really highly ranked that he got to officially visit but didn't get on board. It helps when you're actually getting some of your other position coaches to land quality players.
100%. Yeah. As to the question, the skill guys, I don't know what's behind that, but I don't have any numbers to support this. It could just be totally wrong. I'm going to say it anyways. I feel like it's a little easier to get a 4-star receiver than a 4-star defensive lineman or offensive lineman, out of state, truly coveted by top tier programs. I just feel like there's more of those receivers to go around. It gets a little bit more fever pitch with the guy who you're forecasting as a first-round tackle. So there's that. But you're right. It is slanted a little bit more towards the skill spot. But that's not a knock on the big guys. Every single lineman on both sides that they've got in this class, I think, is a good addition. Like, I think Cameron Miller is a good addition. I think Tyreek Jennison, Duncombe, Witherington, they might be 3-star kids in those cases, but they were sought after. They had other power conference options, and they might not like jump off the page like some of the 5-stars you see, but they are definitely SEC level development guys.
Ooh, great question here from Chin Coleman's Glasses. How motivated is Mark Stoops? Justin, we need your thoughts on this. We've answered this question many a times. You've never had to answer this question, so we're putting your feet to the fire, new guy.
It's just, how do you lean into that? Like, how do you lean into now I'm motivated again? I don't know how you do motivated. We can do it, and it's fun for us to do it. But for him, he's probably just like, well, I've always been this way. You do have to believe that deep down he's got a chip on his shoulder. With Vince moving on, with the last 3 years being what they are, with all the anger in the fan base and the talk about the direction with NIL and everything, like, he's probably very motivated to put all the stuff about other jobs and is he retiring and all that to the side and just, I want to get my legacy back on track, right where it was. You know he feels that way. I'm not putting a whole lot into the month of June in recruiting. I feel like all of that was probably teed up under the surface, and we just didn't see it because they didn't have anybody on board other than Jarvis Strickland. But if they can ride this wave and get Ponatoski and they have a little bit of success early in the season, we might get Swaggy Stoops back again sooner than we thought.
It wasn't that long ago that he was doing the double fist walking off the field at Ole Miss. So
Yeah.
to your point, we've seen him motivated before. I do like that you mentioned the quotes earlier, and I wrote about it today, and I don't know how much to try. But, like, the recruits are talking about him at the final table more often than not. Where I know there's been a lot of people who have questioned how active, like, what Stoops' role in recruiting. They see another coach that's out there on the road, and Stoops isn't out on the road as much. I think, generally speaking, most coaches aren't on the road as much as they used to be, just the nature of the way roster building is now. But so I do at least think that it is a good sign for the diehards right now that, like, okay, the kids are saying that the coach is getting it done when it's all said and done. Like, these kids want to come play for him. So I think that's an overall positive. I did get a kick out of one guy who said this is like the Western Allies and the Soviets joining powers in World War II. Really, that made me cackle. Here's a question, because we are going to be all. I'm fired up to get into talking season. You know, recruiting. It's fun for the month of June, but, like, I want to talk some smack about some of these SEC schools, even though Kentucky will be projected near the bottom of the league. Best chance to win an SEC home game this season. That's from PB5. I've got a couple candidates. Mr. Luckett, who is your top choice for SEC home game, SEC home win that would end the streak of 10, 11? Or 9. I think it's 9 SEC, 10 Power 5.
9 sounds right. And it's like 4-12 or something ridiculous. We'll have to pull that up. 2-11, maybe, something like that. I actually did my first schedule run through today, so this is convenient timing. To me, like, Nick, I think they don't beat Ole Miss week 2. Like, I think it might be more likely that they go 0-4 than they win one of those next 3 games at home. So Ole Miss is my answer. I just think Austin Simmons' first road game, Ole Miss had a massive or significant talent drain.
Yeah.
You have to throw last year out because that was such a it's such a shocking how they lost to South Carolina. But typically they play one of their best games of the year, like that first SEC game, week 2. So I would say Ole Miss. I think if you lose that one, I think there's a chance the season could really get away from you. But I think if you win that one, that's probably like if you're going to draw out a map of success for this season, I think winning that game is pretty high on the list of boxes to check. So I would say Ole Miss week 2.
Who are the other home games they've got? They've got Ole Miss and then
Texas, Tennessee,
over, and then Florida in November.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think Ole Miss as well. I mean, Ole Miss is probably top 20, top 25 on paper instead of like prime playoff contender the past couple of years. And Kentucky has played well, tended to be shootouts or close games at least. And then just the fact that Kentucky's so much smarter to bet on early in the season than later in the season, just the whole macro Stoops trend. Yeah, that would, when they've got everything to play for, no negativity has seeped in early in the season, a team that should be beatable on a good day. Yeah, you got to go with that one, I think.
The last 4 games have been decided by a combined 10 points in that series. 3 3-point games, and then the overtime loss off the missed extra point at Kroger Field back a couple of years ago. So that's one reason to believe why. You mentioned the talent drain, Luckett. We'll get more into it when we're down in Atlanta, but there really is. I mean, they lost their top 3 receivers, their loaded defensive line.
They had an NFL team last year, yeah.
Yeah, like their quarterback who got the Giants traded up to get in the first round. And Austin Simmons, he's going to be the boy wonder because he's a college graduate at age 19. He plays baseball and he's this great athlete, da-da-da-da-da. But, like, Jackson Dart that we saw last year was a much different Jackson Dart 3 years ago when he first got in Lane Kiffin's system. There's a lot of people who are giving him the leg up because of the Lane Kiffin factor. But I do want to take a moment, and I'm not going to do this right here, right now, because I know you sicko Tennessee fans are watching. But I think that Tennessee game will end up playing out a lot like the Georgia game. When you look at Kentucky's schedule as a whole, like, if Kentucky's going to pull off upsets, it's because they're going to play a team that is willing to get in a rock fight with them, and that's what Tennessee's going to do. They're going to try to win by getting into rock fights with teams. They've got a really good defense, but you had the whole Nico situation happen, so now you bring in App State's quarterback where, like, and who's he throwing to? There was going to be a lot on Nico's shoulders regardless because, Brazel's just was okay last year. Like, there's not this bona fide star power. Dylan Sampson, by God, had the school's rushing record. It was the SEC leading rusher last year. Like, they lost a lot. They lost some offensive linemen too. So like that feels like a game where both teams are willing to play in a rock fight. It's just, we know the history in that series. It doesn't matter how close they play it. That stupid team finds a way to win. But I certainly don't think that's one that, like, you should necessarily put in Sharpie and L because that one's going to be a close game at the Krog next fall.
I agree with that. Yeah, that would be in the not likely to win category, but not one that you write off early in the season. I think they still might have the best unit in the game, but there are enough questions about Tennessee that you could see things going a little bit sideways for them, and it being an interesting game the week of.
One final question: who will end up with more kids, Roush or Rowland?
Oh, man, don't challenge me.
I got a lot of catching up to do. I think the bigger question is: are the Lucketts trying to catch up with the Roushes?
Yeah.
No, maybe down the road, but not right now. We'll see.
I believe we're having a 11 personnel child edition tomorrow, where our kids are going to go.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, I've heard that we're having a podcast at a playground, not featuring dads. So the kids will, if they survive, then maybe we'll get a guest appearance with them later on down the road. But this has been a fun show. Hopefully, Matt Ponatoski can close the book on this summer with a nice win over 4th of July weekend. And the next time we're talking to you, won't have to be playing the Ponatoski what if game. If he does commit, you'll be seeing us here on the YouTube channel talking about it right afterwards. But Justin, thanks so much for joining us. I know it's busy right now, and there's a lot of stuff going on over at Cats Illustrated as everybody and everything gets moved over. It's a process of migrating everything over, getting all the old content in, and then also, you got to fire up your stuff. So best of luck, but also, like, this is pretty cool. Like, I still remember just getting so irritated when you would beat me to a scoop, and it's like, okay, now I don't have to be as ticked off because we're teammates now. We're all on the same team. We're all in this together.
Both got skin in the game. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. It's a really cool thing that we get On3 access, and they can read your stuff and all the guys with On3 and vice versa. So I think it's a perfect deal. Keep the communities as they are, but everybody wins, and it is a win-win. So you guys are awesome, and I'm glad to come on, and we'll collaborate on a lot of things moving forward, I'm sure.
Nothing wrong with a little double dipping. Nothing wrong at all.
Especially 2 scoops of ice cream when it's this hot outside. But we got to get out of there. Have a safe and happy 4th of July weekend. For Justin Rowland and Adam Luckett, I'm Nick Roush. Go Cats, go USA!